Hey, what's going on, guys? Raw Lucario here, and today I am going to be rating from least best to most best the order of all the Batman Arkham games, or at least all the main ones in the series. I'm not going to be touching Arkham VR or the mobile games because I don't really have any experience with them. And as for Origins Blackgate, I'm actually planning on making a separate video on that, so stay tuned for that. But with that game, I don't really feel like it's fair to even rate it against these games because honestly, it's so different in terms of gameplay. It's not really even fair. And I also would like to say that I do not have any footage for Arkham Origins, unfortunately, for when I will be talking about it, so I'll probably just be using some Arkham City footage there. I do apologize for that, but I am recording and editing off of a PlayStation, and, well, Arkham Origins isn't on PlayStation, so. Well, not the PS4 anyway, but if you guys do enjoy this type of video and want to see more stuff like this, please be sure to leave a like, comment, and subscribe. And yeah, let's get right into number 4. Alright, and at number 4, and this might be a little bit of a hot take, but I am putting Batman Arkham Asylum. Yeah, I know that most people think this is one of the best games in the series, and there is good reason for it. I just don't see it. I mean, look, when it came out, this was a phenomenal game, and it still is for the most part. It was heavily groundbreaking, and the amount of games that we wouldn't have today without it is astonishing. But I think when you take a look at the other games in the series, this one is just the worst. I mean, this game does have a fantastic story, better than some of the others in the series. I will give that to you, but ultimately, I just didn't really think it was unique. It felt like a really long episode of Batman the Animated Series, which is fine, but I think the other games' stories were a lot more unique and different and varied. They felt like they were their own thing. And that I just think makes it a little better. And on top of that, if we talk about gameplay, I mean, I just find myself getting the most aggravated coming back to this game, even as opposed to Arkham Knight, because with this game, there was just so much they hadn't done yet, and a lot of things were just a little off. Like, for example, if you're in a fight and you want to attack multiple people, once you've knocked all of those people down, you have to do a ground takedown. You can't punch them while they're down on the ground to keep your combo going, so it makes it to where the combat is heavily slowed by comparison. That and also not having the knockout smash for Predator sections is really, really aggravating. And also, I feel like Batman just moves kind of slow and a little clunky. I find myself constantly bumping into things, which may be in part due to my hand, but I don't know, even before I had my hand broken, I just found myself running into walls sometimes, whereas I just didn't in the older games. And I think, too, that um, this game just really shows its age in certain areas and aspects. And, as much as I do love it, I just have to put it at number 4, unfortunately. But there's a reason why I said that I wanted to rate these games from least best to most best as opposed from worst to best, because all of these games are great, and I just don't really think it's fair to call one of these games the worst in the series. But with that being said, let's move on to number 3. Alright, and in at number 3, I have Batman Arkham Origins. Yeah, so this game I don't have the most experience with, but to be honest, but I did try and educate myself as much as I possibly could. I have played a bit of the game, roughly like 5 or 6 hours of it, and I educated myself through YouTube videos just so I would be prepared to make my opinion, and I think I can confidently put this game in at number 3. And there's a reason for it. So I think this game is definitely better than Arkham Asylum just in terms of gameplay standpoints. I mean, it feels much like Arkham City because it was made with the same engine in terms of combat and traversal. You even have the grapnel boost here, which does help. But there are two main reasons why I don't actually have it higher than some of the other games on this list, and that is the I Am the Night challenges and the open world. Now, I'm going to start with the open world because I feel that we all know why the I Am the Night challenges are a problem. For me, with the open world, the biggest problem with it is that it's very, very not interesting to explore. It feels like a regular city, and I mean, look, it has some really great architecture, and it's cool to see some of the areas from Arkham City not destroyed, but I think the biggest issue with it, though, is that it just feels like a normal city. The architecture in Arkham City and Night for their open worlds is just a lot more gothic and visually interesting. There was a lot more going on in it, and there were like distinct sections of the map. With this, I mean, yeah, you have the two areas, but they feel very similar, and having only the one grapnel boost just makes it feel like a slog to go through the open world. I mean, there's a lot to explore in it, and it is interesting to go through your first couple of times, but once you already know all the secrets to the world and know all the Riddler stuff and whatnot, it just kind of feels like a regular city. And you might say that, well, like Spider-Man PS4 is a very regular city, and that's true, but there's a lot more diversity in like the height of the buildings. Plus, you can web zip, you can run on walls, you have so much in your arsenal move-wise that it feels interesting to go through just because of the way that you're doing it. But Arkham Origins just doesn't have that, and it makes it to where the world can just kind of feel very slow to get through. And while you do have the fast travel system, because you're going to be playing this on an Xbox 360 or PS3 most likely, it's going to take you quite a bit of time to load there, so it's still not really getting rid of the time issue all too much. And then, of course, we have the I Am the Night challenges, which while on paper are pretty good. They're essentially like the Riddler challenges in Arkham City, except instead of getting Riddler trophies as a reward, you get upgrades for your various gadgets. And I think even a 100% completion should you complete all the challenges. But of course, the biggest problem is that with these challenges, there are certain ones that you can only complete at various points in the game, and if you miss out completing the challenge at that point, you cannot complete any more of the I Am the Night challenges, so you'll miss out on some upgrades for your gadgets and stuff, which just sucks. I mean, I really don't know why they thought that was a good idea to lock those things behind it. You know, if they were just like bits of lore, or if you could access them for through more points in the story, I feel like it would be a lot better to go through. But unfortunately, those two things just really hold the game back for me, and that's why I have to put it at number 3 on this list. I mean, otherwise, I could have even seen it putting it at number 2. But unfortunately, it just isn't. But let's get into what I think number 2 actually is. Alright, so at number 2, I actually have Batman Arkham Knight. Now, I think that Arkham Knight gets a lot of unnecessary hate for two reasons: the story and the Batmobile. But let me first talk about the positives with the game. Gameplay wise, this is the best, by no doubt. The Predator sections and the combat sections are just so fleshed out and fun, and there's so much more variety what you have in your moveset and your arsenal, and going across the city is just such a joy to drive around in the Batmobile or to do the massive grapnel boost that just sends you flying. And the open world is just so well done. It's so visually interesting and distinct, and I just love it so much. And it feels more alive than Arkham Origins, with having cop cars running through the street and riots breaking out and all this stuff. And while it could have felt more alive by having the people in that, I do understand why they made that choice in the story they wanted to tell, which brings me to the biggest issue with the game: the story. Or, well, maybe second biggest, but either way. With this game's story, it is predictable who the main villain is, and they did kind of lie about it, I will agree, but it's still well done, and I'm really glad that they were able to bring Jason Todd into the story. I just wish that they had maybe mentioned him before, as opposed to just having him in here randomly. It does feel kind of odd. And of course, also having the Joker in the story is a little disappointing, because you have the issue of, they killed him off in Arkham City. Why is he here? But I think he works really well in the story, and I'm really glad they did include him. So I think the story is kind of take it or leave it, but it definitely isn't as good as some of the other games' story. Now, there's one big issue, and that is, of course, the Batmobile. And I want to make one thing perfectly clear: the Batmobiles is not bad. The combat is fun, and driving around in it is amazing. The only problem with it is that it is overused. There are too many combat sections, and the combat sections that do come up have a lot of people in it, way more than you probably should have to fight. And that does get annoying. And also having it rely on the Riddler doesn't really make any sense. Like, how is it considered a riddle for Batman to just drive his car around a racetrack? I get that, but I think you'll still have a ton of fun with this game, especially if you get the DLC. All of the side missions are really, really fun. Even the Hush one, which was kind of a letdown, is still fun to do. I do enjoy doing it. It just is a little bit of a letdown story-wise, but I do really enjoy this game, and I think if you do kind of have a hate towards it or have never played it, I recommend giving it another chance, playing it through to the end, especially with the DLC, because it is a really good game. It just has some issues story-wise, and I think gameplay-wise, it's probably the best in the entire series, so that's why I have put it at number 2, and I am thinking we should now move on to number 1. Alright, and in at number 1, which should be no surprise to anyone, it's gonna have to be Batman Arkham City. I mean, come on. This game is fantastic. I recommend playing it even if you're not a fan of Batman. It's just so great. I mean, the gameplay is just so heavily improved compared to Arkham Asylum, but let's not even talk about that because I did put this over Arkham Knight, which I said had the best gameplay in the series. I think here, though, the gameplay is fantastic, as I said, but the story just is, I think, the best in the entire series. It feels like it's its own universe, it's its own Batman story, and the side missions really help to accompany the main story very, very well. Whereas I think in some of the other games, some side missions kind of felt unnecessary or weird. All of them feel great and they tie into the main story well. And I just think that really helps it a lot. And two, I also feel like all of the Riddler challenges are the most fun in the entire series. While there are an obscene amount of them, there's 400, I think they're a lot easier to digest because they're spread across a nice area. It's not as big of a map as Arkham Knight or Arkham Origins, so you don't feel like there's as much to do, in my opinion. And it just was so great. It was probably even more groundbreaking, I would say, than Arkham Asylum was, and it just was probably one of the best superhero games ever made, and I don't think that any other game in this series can top it. So let me know what you guys think of my list. As always, this is, of course, just my opinion. You know, you feel free to feel what you want, but I just thought I would share my opinion with you guys, and I hope you guys did enjoy this type of video because I would like to make more of these with other types of games, and I hope you did enjoy, and if you did, please be sure to let me know with like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you all in the next one. Goodbye.